Cents Per Mile, featuring Charles Gracie, Paul Gibson, and Josh Haynes. Everyone knows the trucking industry has issues, but most people are afraid to talk about it.
Someone's got to do it.
With loads of recruiting and marketing experience and backed by the largest driver audience in the world, we deliver carriers the driver perspective, find solutions, and help make sense make sense.
Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson.
Hey, I'm Josh Haynes. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about should or shouldn't you use a marketing agency?
That's hi everybody.
I know.
Hey, can you
Going
say,
spicy.
Can you say agency for me one more time, Charles? Say it like 3 times fast because that was really good.
Agency.
Oh, see, he does fine.
Is it like Beetlejuice where they show up if you say it 3 times?
Oh God, I hope not. Love him to death, but also that'd be weird. Cool. So before we make it awkward with a lot of our friends in the industry, yeah, we got to talk about the things we always talk about. So we are available as a podcast pretty much anywhere you get your podcast: Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, etc. So if you could like, subscribe, rate wherever you check out our content, that would help us out greatly and help get us some momentum and get us a little bit further out there.
Know what else can help? Go to centspermilepodcast.com where you can suggest a topic to be a guest or even to become a sponsor.
Sponsor? Who's our sponsor today, Charles?
Well, it's TAFS, and you can check them out at TAFS.com where they make factoring fun.
All right. Well, that means it's time for the news. Okay, so it's time for 10-2 News, where we go over some of the most relevant, exciting, interesting, and whatever stories from the past couple weeks. So right now, we're going to talk about Google's code-cracking quantum leap. Here's what it means for business. So basically, Google created this quantum computing chip that if you look at it, the way it works is like, so the best supercomputers in the world, right? It computed something in 5 minutes that would take 10 septillion years, which is essentially a 1 followed by 25 zeros, somewhere around the ballpark, I guess, if you had to, make that relative, it would be about the estimated theoretical length of the entire universe. And it did it in 5 minutes. No big deal. And that's even got some scientists who are hypothesizing that essentially it's pulling potentially information from parallel universes, which follows quantum mechanics and that sort of thing. So they obviously can't prove that, but theoretically, the idea of multiversal math, in the idea that what's happening is essentially, so normally computers run off bits, which is where you always hear ones and zeros. You watch The Matrix, that's kind of a reoccurring theme. I know I had the wallpaper and the screensaver, but what this does is essentially everything can exist as a 1 or a 0 at the same time, but also like a combination of both, which is crazy. But Forbes, when talking about it, talked about different things that it could affect, and one of them was logistics and transportation. So the idea that you could optimize complex logistics and transportation networks to increase transparency, reduce costs, emissions, and improve efficiency. So whenever you're looking at the data to try and, shrink costs or maybe help a driver get somewhere the best way they possibly can with the highest fuel economy, et cetera, you could use this and like instantly have an idea of all the variables, put it together, and have a more realistic prediction of what things could look like on the other end.
Hear me out here.
Mm-hmm.
Hear me out here. We're talking about data analytics and how this chip can help. Do you think we can test them out with the FMCSA or the ATA, help them with their data on the truck driver shortage, maybe?
Well, I don't know that so it gets you data. It can't create something. It can't create a driver shortage so that all of their stuff makes sense.
I mean, they got that part covered, but when they have the data to support it, that might back it up or debunk it. Either way, it's a step forward.
Well, I mean, we definitely know instantly. Or maybe it can find if the hypothesis is right, maybe it can find a timeline where that actually exists.
You know, that's interesting how far that's coming. And so when we were deciding on what news to do today, I saw one where the FMCSA was sitting there trying to debunk the traffic warning triangles for broke down vehicles for autonomous trucks. And I was really leaning towards that one. But then I found this one, and this one was pretty good. Plus, it involved Tennessee. So on CDLlife.com, I found Tennessee trooper catches a big rig hauling an excavator with no securement of any kind. And the picture on this is priceless. You got it sitting sideways on a low boy. Flags on both sides, but no chains, no straps, no nothing, just going down the highway like nothing's wrong. Rate that strap work. Yeah, epic fail. And Tennessee stopped them. So the Tennessee Highway Patrol nabbed the trucker for a serious load securement violation. According to the article, January 13th, from Tennessee Highway Patrol, the motor carrier officer stopped a commercial vehicle in Urea County, Tennessee, and suspected for unsecured load. I mean, suspected. There's clearly no straps. There's no suspect there. It's definitely a violation. Troopers' inspection uncovered multiple violations. This is one of those things where I think we just need to do better. Like at some point, this driver thought I'm just going down the road. Maybe I had a brain fart, but I have this excavator on a trailer and I'm going to drive down a public highway with it unsecured.
Well, so a couple things. Looking at that picture, I can't really make out what's in front of it, but is that another piece of equipment that's on there too? And it seems like those red flags aren't just for the wide load. But the best part is you could use quantum computing to show that driver every possible scenario that could possibly go wrong with the terrible choices they're making.
I mean, and it is. If you look at the other pictures in the article, right in front of it, there's another piece of equipment. But if you just look at how this thing's sitting on there, they turned it sideways, had the scoop hanging off the back, and then the track and the base of it is sitting sideways, overhanging. So it's not only is it an oversized load, it's not secured. Yeah, I mean, guys, just be better. Take pride in your job.
I wasn't there. Why is it? Why are the tracks sideways? Like, why do the tracks
stability reasons? You have the weight distributed, so it's not just sitting in the middle oblong. It was a choice. I think it's how they get it up there too, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks like it's about the same width as the trailer. I don't know, man. That's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2025 in trucking.
Yeah, that's definitely a choice.
Well, speaking of choices, we have a choice to go behind the desk with Tenstreet.
Do you want to grow your fleet but get buried by paperwork, slow hiring processes, and outdated systems, all while struggling to comply with changing safety regulations? Enter Tenstreet, the all-in-one platform that simplifies driver lifecycle management by bringing marketing, recruiting, onboarding, safety, and retention together in one place. Tenstreet coordinates and streamlines all your operations. Post to dozens of job boards at once. Speed time to hire with pre-population and AI to get more full applications faster. And manage the entire post-hire process, from cutting costs with online onboarding to integrating all safety data into one dashboard, to improving retention through thoughtful engagement. Whether you have one truck or 1,000, our expert team is here to help. Sleep soundly knowing you can pass an audit, attract needed drivers, and achieve your business goals. Join the thousands of carriers using Tenstreet. Sign up for a demo today.
At TAFS, we offer unparalleled trucking excellence and service. Enjoy exclusive benefits like fantastic tire discounts and 1-hour advances for quick cash. Recognized as the top factoring company in 2023, we're your partner for success. Access business loans, manage finances with ease through our client portal, F2 fuel card, and mobile app. Contact us now to see how we can help your trucking business thrive.
Now it's time to make sense. And we're talking about agencies. Should you use them? What do they do? What's the good? What the bad? And you can make your choice. So, Paul, you and I have covered a lot of topics.
Mm-hmm.
One of them we have not talked about is how it's more prevalent nowadays for people to be using agencies in some scenarios and less in others. You've seen a big shift, especially over the last year when budgets got reduced. Agencies were kind of hurting a little bit here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think everybody was kind of hurting in a lot of ways, whether it was vendors, whether it was agencies, whether it was the trekking companies themselves, I mean, everybody, the slowly coming off, all the time when everything popped up, but with companies being more selective about who they're hiring and who you can recruit and, their requirements and that sort of stuff, it made it a lot tighter, as being, in recruiting. So that I feel like that kind of happened across the board. Now, that's one thing that is interesting. I can tell you one time when I interviewed for a recruiting director job, because I have such a background in marketing, I brought that up as a perk. And one of the things that they pointed out to me was I would rather pay an agency to do our marketing, and give you 100% of your time to recruiting. So basically, they were like, "Hey, I'd rather pay however much percent to open up an additional 50% for you to be able to do your job that much better and focus on that."
And I think it's depending on the scenario. If you would have, when I was on the carrier side, there was no scenario where I could justify using an agency. We had set lanes. They did not change. If anything, we expanded. I could not justify the amount of time that was being spent to go pay someone 15% of my marketing budget to handle it for me. Now, that's that scenario. Through time and experience, I have learned that there are situations out there where carriers have lanes that are always evolving or so many that it's hard to maintain. And then you have a full-time person or an agency doing that for you, unless you leverage technology for direct feeds to your partners. But that's what we're here to discuss. What scenarios doesn't make sense? So I tell you from my experience, I couldn't justify it. But there are people out there that say, hey, it's worth the 15% markup to have you handle it all. And then I've also heard some clients and friends say, hey, I like having an agency because when everything goes to shit, I have someone to blame. That's not me.
Yeah.
And that is in the spirit of trucking. Let's do this all day long. But then there's times where there's disadvantages, in my opinion. Like I know from my personal experience that the more I work with a client, the more I get ingrained in how their processes work and have a better understanding, the more I can support them. When I'm getting something from an agency, I lose that. There's a middleman now. So if you're going to use an agency, I would suggest making sure it's someone that you can depend on to properly communicate to your vendors. Otherwise, you're doing yourself a disservice for a 15% markup.
Yeah, I think there's another side of that though too. Having been in that situation, as a recruiting and marketing manager, but then also having been a vendor and now working for a vendor, I think there's sometimes too where sometimes a trekking company might not have someone on staff who can actually do the job as well as somebody who's had experience with it. For instance, like if you've never placed ads before as a recruiting director and you don't have somebody in house who can, you're gonna get better results from an agency. If you there's a lot of companies with bad messaging, and a lot of times those agencies, whether you like it or not, that agency's messaging is probably going to be better than yours.
You just took my punchline opportunity. I was going to make a jab at the fact that sometimes people not having experience might be what we need. They won't list respect as a job perk.
Well, I mean, and it's one of those things too where that I could see that, it does go both ways. And I think that's the important part is if you are going to use an agency is to have those conversations, because you might not be good at ad placement or exploring spaces where, drivers are, but you also might have your messaging down to a science. And then it makes sense. because you could say, no, I know for a fact this messaging works. I need exposure. Or you might have done and gone and gotten yourself exposure, but your messaging just isn't connecting. There's different scenarios where it becomes a trade-off. I don't think it's necessarily black or white.
I think you have to weigh it out on what you're trying to accomplish, how much that workload is, and how much of it are you willing to do. It's kind of the same thing, the mentality I take on with home projects, time and money. Is the time I'd spend on this project better spent on the project or better spent on work? And what's the value assigned to it? And am I willing to pay someone else to do it? And generally for me, I'm going to weigh more time for me to work is worth the money to pay someone to do it. Now, from a marketing perspective, you should apply that train of thought. You should decide, hey, is this something I'm willing to do? And some vendors, it's plug and play. Some vendors working direct is pretty easy. It's seamless. And then there's other ones where it's tedious. For those of you that consider yourself tedious, be a better partner, be better. I like having those relationships with my clients. Like, I value those. I get to know their pain points. And sometimes instead of going there and trying to give them my entire shopping catalog of services, I can sit there and when the opportunity presents itself and something that can solve a problem, I present it. You kind of lose that. So I am always for the direct relationship. Now, there are some agencies out there where they do a really good job of plugging those two sides together for that communication. And then you have others where it's kind of like the Iron Curtain and you never know other than the ad that you're producing.
Yeah. Well, and I've even experienced some people who've used agencies who had never seen the ads. And I've experienced companies who they played a huge part in the ads. And I mean, part of that comes from, me doing video work for trucking companies. Sometimes agencies would have me out. There would be someone from the agency there overseeing the whole thing with the client. And then sometimes they would hire me, send me out there, and then it's just me and the client kind of trying to figure out what they want. But I think a big part of that too is it does come down to like lift and training, I think is huge. Like, so training a recruiter, how long would you say it takes a recruiter to get good at their job? Like, if you had to do it in months.
To get good at their job is going to be dependent on the pipeline. And it takes a recruiter time to build that pipeline.
Not even that, just getting good at being on the phone talking to drivers.
Oh, well, I can generally tell if you're going to be good or not within the first month. If you don't have a personality to talk to people and open up conversation, you're going to fail.
But I mean, like, the ability to close.
Generally, you can know that within a month and have someone trained up within a month on it. Now, they're going to grow over time, but I mean, they'd have the basis to be able to do the job.
Right. But like, that's why I guess what I was getting at is the over time. Same thing with marketing. You can go hire someone to market, but they've got to learn the trucking industry in order to be good in the trucking industry because it's different than every other industry. And you have to, pay that person. You have the time, you have the training, you have the cost of giving them everything they need and the tools to do their job, etc. Whereas an agency, you can bypass that. So that is one perk, is the time that it takes, the research, the person that you'd have to train up. But I think you've got someone who has a little bit more recent real life experience that you want to talk to.
Yeah, we're bringing on my friend Kylie Erickson from PTS Worldwide. Kylie, welcome to Cents Per Mile.
Thank you.
I'm going to start this off with a question. You're running recruiting. Treat your job like it's a bus going downhill. Do you give that wheel to someone else and trust them to drive that bus down the hill, or do you grab the wheel yourself?
I have to grab the wheel myself. I can't trust somebody else to do it. You kind of had made the comment earlier about being able to blame somebody else. Unfortunately, I do not have the ability to do that. So I definitely need to maintain that control.
So when it comes to driving your marketing, would you prefer, in your experience, given the type of job that you guys are hiring for, and especially because you're in a niche market, you're looking for a specific type of driver hauling a specific type of freight with a specific time to hire that's lengthier than many. So do you trust marketing to be done with a middleman in between or a middle person in 2025 terms in between, or do you work directly with your vendors to make those relationships and ensure your own success?
I always work direct. I just feel like I pivot a lot. So, my hiring process is long. It's running about 6 weeks from start to finish. So, in order to engage, in order to find the right drivers, I have to be involved in it. I typically will give anybody that I do work with about 45 days, and I'll know right then and there if we need to adjust, if we need to pivot, and how things are moving forward. Um, and so for me, everything has to be direct.
Now, I want to give a little context to this because 6 weeks might seem long to some people. If you're listening to this and you don't know the niche type of driver that's needed here, that might seem a little lengthy. So can you tell us a little bit for context purposes, what type of driver you're looking for and why?
Yeah, so our drivers do have to be hazmat TWIC certified. We're contracted with the Department of Defense. So there are some different levels of security and screening that have to be done with each of our drivers. So that tends to kick out that hiring time quite a bit.
All right. And because of that, and because they're going through government clearance and all that fun stuff, it makes it a lengthy process. So in your specific experience, not only are you combating getting your brand out there, but also a lengthier time to hire. Do you ever leverage your vendors, your marketing team to try to help with that? Is that something that you guys can leverage to maintain their interest during that process?
With some vendors, yes. With others, no. With others, it's here, we're going to put it out there. Good luck to you. Here we go.
So here's your lead. Best of luck closing it.
Exactly. Like, let us
say your
know how
10
it
Hail
goes.
Marys and come back and give me a report at the end of the month.
Exactly. Like, oh, look, it's the same like with time to hire, right? Like, we get well, how many hires did you get from us this month? Well, to be honest, I won't know for 2 months, so I'll get back to you on that. So it just makes that process a little bit harder, which is why I really have to be involved in the messaging, because my messaging today is going to get me those drivers 2 months from now. And so I'm constantly looking back and looking forward to see how to adjust and pivot to get the right drivers at the right time.
So knowing that you have that lengthy time to hire, attribution and stuff and reporting has to be key to what you're doing.
Yes, it is.
I mean, you're going back in time quite a bit.
Yeah, it is very, very frustrating to not be able to have the data to support what I'm looking at currently. So that's another reason why I have to work direct with whoever I work with, so they understand exactly what my expectations are and can provide me with the information I need.
So if you're deciding on a vendor or an agency, say you were evaluating agencies and weighing them compared to a direct vendor, what would be some of the things that you as a carrier are looking for in either one of those experiences or services being offered?
So it would have to be very personal. So I would have to have one person and not 20, right? I don't need like 18 people that are involved. Talk to this person about this person about that. They would have to be able to show me the data and show me exactly what they're doing, which I have found in the past difficult when it comes to agencies. I hear a lot, well, we're going to try this, but I don't really see the trying, right? Like sometimes there's a mixed message there. But really it comes down to, are you doing it properly? Are you getting it out there? Where are you putting it? Which is another issue that comes into play. And then is everybody getting the proper information at the proper time to make it happen? So I think a lot of it comes down to that communication and to that, show me, don't tell me type situation that I always look for.
It's interesting. One of the points you brought up is the fact that you don't want an army of people to try to decipher who you need to talk to about. I know a lot of setups where they're like, hey, you got a person for this, person for that. And they think that's beneficial because they're giving you a direct communication for each specific instance. But that's also a burden from the carrier side, trying to remember, got to break out your decoder to sit there and figure out who you're shooting an email to, or it's been passed around several times. One of the things I've come to realize is there's several scenarios where it's beneficial for someone to use an agency. You don't have the time, as Paul mentioned. Maybe your time is better spent. But in a lot of scenarios, there's also perks to working direct. And I've seen hybrid models where maybe, hey, the standard stuff goes through an agency and then they reserve a part of their budget to work direct with specific vendors that they know they're going to get a bigger ROI from being direct on. So sometimes it's simply the 15% that you're keeping in your budget. Sometimes it's added values, and sometimes it's just a personalized relationship that maximizes that effort. Have you ever seen any of those or considered any of those from your perspective where you might be able to offload things to either your vendor or your agency, or things that you wish you could offload that you can't right now?
No, I think that we have a pretty good mix. I am definitely not a creative ad marketing person. I'm not that person, so I know that I need help there. But we're also very small, so budgeting is definitely part of our issue as far as, do you pay for a big agency to be able to do that marketing, and do you have that budget? I think that always comes into play, especially with us. But we
Now
have great partners.
you ready to have some fun? I'm going to put my best friend and co-host Paul on the spot because I have a creative person. And he has no idea this bus is coming, but it's coming down the hill, and you got the wheel. So, Paul,
What?
yeah. It's kind of like under the truck, but it's definitely under the truck. Kylie, in a couple sentences, describe your job.
My job?
Yeah, the job that you're hiring for, the drivers.
Oh, okay. So I need team drivers. They have to have at least 2 years of verifiable experience, tractor trailer, OTR preferred. They have to have hazmat. They have to have TWIC. They have to be willing to team, and they have to be able to obtain national security clearance at a secret level. We run all 48 states, military base to military base.
And they haul, I'm going to add in a caveat, they haul explosives and munitions.
Correct.
Paul, quick
Yes.
pitch.
Oh my God! What?
Come on.
Like a creative marketing pitch?
Yeah, quick pitch. Like, how are you going to get drivers to apply for that job?
Well, I would imagine, like, what kind of
No pressure.
experience? What kind of experience do you guys require?
2 years over the road.
2 years over the road, and you're looking for a team. Oh wow!
Yeah.
And willing to hire a bomb on wheels.
Well, yeah. So you got that's traffic is the scary part about that. So I would probably lean into, because one thing that I've learned about drivers is one of their favorite pastimes is to poke fun at other drivers. So I would probably lean in really hard on how you need the best of the best, but almost do it in like a fun, not everybody can do this job, not everybody's up for it kind of thing. But then also kind of an element of like the gravity of it. It would also be really interesting to have like an ad where you got a hold of one of the explosives and then blew it up and like filmed the blowing up of the explosive and being like, are you a good enough driver to have 1,000 of these behind you? If not, don't bother applying. But if you think you could do it and you have a friend that thinks they could do it, let's talk.
I'm going to kind of pivot off your idea there. I think it'd be cool to like have one of those like video montage, like Uncle Sam, we want you. And like to go through like all the different notions of what you're looking for. And at the end, we don't want this, and have something going boom.
Yeah. Well, I almost think, I don't know. I think there's an element of it, like if you want, like to get veterans, I think that's huge. But I think going through that kind of almost like what you were talking about, like the "we want you, Uncle Sam" kind of thing. I think with how divided the country is and people's different takes on different things, I don't know that would be the route you would want to go. Just my opinion.
Maybe not in Kansas City.
In general. Either way.
So before we let you go, I'm going to start off this new year. If you had to pick one of your favorite people on the show, who would it be?
I have to go with Charles, but Paul, will get to know each other a little bit better throughout the next year or so, and maybe next time it'll be you. But
Maybe you.
All right, I will absolutely accept a lack of information.
How can people find you if they want to get a hold of you or PTS Worldwide?
They can go to our website at www.ptsworldwide.net, or you can give me a call at 815-498-1930.
And for the sake of a great spicy one-liner, to agency or not to agency, your final verdict.
Not the agency.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on Cents Per Mile.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
We talk a lot about the drivers and solutions on Cents Per Mile. And the reason we can talk solutions is we provide them in our day job. At Hot Seat Services, we're all about providing solutions. Instead of throwing at the wall like everyone else and just trying to cram the top of the funnel to see what falls out, we're providing today's top drivers for your top lanes using our professional recruiters, our marketing to give you a guaranteed cost per hire model. So if you want to hear more about it, check out Hot Seat Services. Let us hire you some drivers today.
All right, so I bet you, she obviously had a long hiring trajectory. It takes a while to actually get a hire on board, and so it's nice to know that I'll probably be your favorite once I go through that process.
Yeah, no, it was a good take, and I think when we're weighing out whether an agency is for you or not, you have to look at what's important to you and what your goals are and figure out, do you need a more personalized approach, or are you okay with having someone in the middle orchestrating that for you? We provided a little bit of insight, so you make the choice. But it's time to close this chapter, so thanks for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson.